The night was a living shadow over Pine Hollow Prison, the wind clawing at the rusted bars and the distant forest whispering secrets no one dared hear. During the final roll call, the guards counted every inmate twice, thrice, until a chilling realization settled like frost in their veins. Cell 7B was empty. The prisoner was gone, vanished as if swallowed by the night itself. Only one witness seemed certain. A K9 named Valor, whose tense stance and low growl pointed toward the perimeter fence. What he tracked would unravel more than an escape. It would unearth secrets the prison walls were meant to bury. Plus, if you enjoy stories like this, liking and subscribing helps more chilling tales reach you. The fog rolled over Pine Hollow Prison like a living tide, curling between the guard towers and spilling into the exercise yard. Every step on the gravel echoed like gunfire in the cold night, and the walls loomed heavier than they had in daylight, their peeling paint and rusted bars seeming to breathe. Sergeant Caleb Trask stood at the edge of the yard, arms folded, eyes scanning the rows of cells. He was a man worn by decades of routine, a hard shell of discipline. But tonight, unease settled in his chest with the weight of a winter storm. The roll call had been routine until the final number. A pause stretched longer than any acceptable silence. Cell 7B, Trask said, voice sharp, empty. A faint murmur ran through the night shift. Officer Harlan, younger, with a nervous twitch in his jaw, swallowed hard. Impossible, he can't just vanish. Valor, the prison's K9, padded forward, ears pricked, nose to the ground. His low growl rumbled from deep in his chest. Trask's gaze followed the dog's line of sight, and something in the pit of his stomach tightened. Valor wasn't just reacting to a missing inmate. He was pointing toward the edge of the yard, toward the forest beyond. The wind carried the scent of wet leaves, decay, and something more subtle, fear. Trask crouched to whisper to Valor, "You see him, boy. Lead the way." The dog's tail flicked, a stiff, deliberate motion. "Sergeant, the cameras," Harlan began, fidgeting with his flashlight. Trask cut him off with a glare. Cameras didn't account for every shadow, every corner where darkness could hide. Tonight, they were powerless against what had happened. The search began slowly. Guards lined up along the perimeter, flashlights stabbing through the fog. Valor moved like liquid shadow, silent yet urgent, weaving between the men. Trask followed, boots crunching on frost-hardened gravel. Every sound seemed amplified. The distant call of a crow, the wind rattling a loose shutter, the low hum of the generator powering the main gates. "Over here." Valor growled low, stopping abruptly at a patch of dirt beneath an ancient oak that clawed at the sky with gnarled branches. The soil looked recently disturbed, faint marks showing where something or someone had been dragged. Trask crouched, examining the prints, and felt a shiver creep up his spine. This wasn't just an escape. It was deliberate, careful, almost ritualistic. Harlan leaned close, whispering, "Do you think someone helped him?" Trask didn't answer immediately. He felt the same thought gnawing at him. The prison was isolated, a fortress meant to hold men like this. Yet someone had breached its walls from inside, or at least someone had known how to manipulate the system. And now, whatever traces they'd left behind belonged to both the fugitive and the betrayer. Valor's nose twitched as he darted forward, pausing at the edge of the tree lean. The fog thickened here, pressing against the guards, swallowing their flashlights. A twig snapped somewhere ahead. Trask froze, hand hovering over his holster. From the mist, a figure emerged, not quite human, more like a shadow hunched and moving with intent. The K9 barked once, sharp and urgent. Then, as if sensing the rawness of the moment, Valor bolted forward. Trask shouted, "Stop him." But the fog swallowed the figure immediately. Trask's heart pounded. He could feel Harlan's tremor beside him, the unsteady rhythm of a man who knew he wasn't prepared for what they were chasing. They reached a clearing. Nothing. The disturbed earth was gone. Only the faintest set of footprints, muddy, deep, leading toward the cliffs beyond the prison, remained. Trask bent low, studying them, feeling the undeniable chill of being watched. Something had been hidden here, something deliberately left to mislead. Harlan's voice broke the silence. "Sir, you think he could have gone over the cliffs?" Trask shook his head. "No. Whoever did this, they want us to think that. His eyes narrowed as he traced the path with his flashlight. The footprints weren't natural. The fugitive hadn't moved alone. The marks suggested strength, weight, something deliberate buried beneath a layer of casual chaos. As they retraced Valor's path, Trask's mind raced. He thought of the prisoner in 7B, Michael Raines, convicted for murder, but clever, charismatic, and quietly dangerous. He also thought of Lieutenant Greer, second in command and notoriously meticulous, whose dislike for Raines had been apparent even in casual prison chatter. Could Greer have overlooked something? Or worse, helped orchestrate it? Trask stopped abruptly, noticing a small, almost imperceptible symbol etched into the bark of the oak, a triangle with a line through the center. A message? A mark left intentionally for someone to find? He frowned. This wasn't the work of a simple escape artist. This was something else entirely. Someone had planned this meticulously. The fog pressed closer, almost suffocating, and Valor stood still, growling low. Trask followed the dog's gaze and saw it. A hollow in the roots of the tree, perfectly hidden beneath matted leaves and moss. He knelt, running fingers over the rough bark, then carefully lifted the cover. Beneath it was a small, hand-carved wooden box. Inside were scraps of paper, maps, notes, and photographs of the prison interior, annotated with routes and security patterns. Trask's stomach churned. Raines hadn't escaped alone. Someone had been feeding him information. Someone had been inside the prison, watching, waiting. Harlan leaned over his shoulder, whispering, This is bigger than just an escape." Trask nodded, the weight of realization settling heavily. Much bigger. And whoever's behind this, they're not done. The wind shifted, carrying with it a faint, metallic scent, blood, perhaps, or rusted iron. Valor stiffened, growling at a sound Trask couldn't yet hear. Something moved beyond the clearing. Too quick to see, too deliberate to be random. The shadows seemed alive. Trask stood, eyes scanning the forest line. The prison behind them was quiet, but the world beyond it was not. Someone had taken reins. Someone had been patient. And now, Trask understood with a cold certainty, they would strike again, and this time the cost would be much higher than a missing prisoner. He looked down at Valor, who whined softly, nose pressed to the ground. Trask rubbed the dog's neck. "Lead the way, boy. Let's see where this trail ends." And with that, they vanished into the fog, stepping into a night that promised secrets, betrayal, and a truth too dangerous to face without fear. The forest beyond Pine Hollow Prison was an oppressive maze of shadows and decay, the fog wrapping each tree like a shroud. Trask's boots sank slightly into the damp earth as he followed Valor's careful lead. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of dead leaves, made him flinch, an instinct honed by decades of night patrols. But tonight, instinct felt like warning. He had chased many fugitives in his time, but none like Michael Raines. None who carried not just cunning, but an aura of inevitability, as if each move was preordained. Valor paused at the edge of a shallow ravine, nose twitching violently. Trask crouched behind a gnarled root, scanning the thickening darkness. The faint moonlight glinted off something metallic, half buried in mud. Trask reached out with gloved hands and uncovered a crowbar, smeared with streaks of rust and a darker red he didn't want to identify. Harlan swallowed audibly. "Sir, is that blood?" Trask said nothing, stuffing the tool into his jacket. His mind was spinning, piecing together the impossible. Whoever had helped Raines had left not just plans and maps, but a trail of violence and intimidation. He could feel the moral grayness creeping in. The prison staff, the inmates, even the forest itself seemed complicit in a quiet conspiracy. They moved on, deeper into the shadows, Valor weaving through undergrowth like he was reading a map invisible to humans. Trask's flashlight barely penetrated the fog, the beam slicing through cold air that smelled of wet moss and earth. Every step seemed deliberate, measured. Whoever was leading Raines wanted them to follow, wanted them to see something. After nearly an hour, they reached a clearing where the fog thinned, revealing the remnants of an old, abandoned cabin. Its walls were splintered and blackened, windows shattered, and the roof sagged under decades of neglect. Valor stopped at the door, pawing at the threshold. Trask's gut clenched. "Inside," he whispered to Harlan, and together they approached. The cabin reeked of damp wood and mildew. Broken furniture lay scattered, like the ghosts of former occupants had fled in a hurry. Trask swept the flashlight across the floor and froze. Footprints, fresh, booted, purposeful, led to a trapdoor hidden beneath a threadbare rug. Harlan's hand shook as he lifted it. Darkness yawned beneath them, a cavity carved into the earth itself. Trask lowered himself carefully, followed by Harlan, feeling the chill of subterranean air wrap around him. Valor slipped in first, tail rigid, ears forward. The chamber below was narrow and suffocating, the walls carved roughly from stone. Candles flickered faintly along the perimeter, their smoke curling into the low ceiling, giving the space a breathless, haunted atmosphere. And in the center, tied to a chair, sat Michael Raines. His eyes were sharp, calculating, but he didn't struggle. "You're early," Raines said, voice calm, almost amused. "I expected a more thorough search." Trask felt Harlan stiffen beside him. "Who did this? Who helped you?" he demanded, anger and disbelief mingling. Raines smiled faintly, and that smile was like ice. "You already know. Lieutenant Greer." The name landed like a hammer. Greer, meticulous, precise, the one who was supposed to uphold order, now revealed as a silent architect of betrayal. Trask's jaw tightened. Harlan whispered, "But why?" Raines's gaze flicked to him, calculating. Power. Leverage. The prison isn't just concrete and steel. It's a chessboard, and some of us play multiple games at once. Trask felt the weight of the truth. The conspiracy ran deeper than one man, one escape. Someone had manipulated every variable, guards, schedules, and even the dogs. Valor growled low, sensing the tension, the fragile calm before inevitable chaos. Raines leaned back, studying them. "You see, I didn't escape. I was guided, and the guidance will continue whether you stop it or not." The words were like a threat disguised as explanation. Trask's instinct screamed, but there was more at stake than fury. He had to navigate this carefully. They freed Raines quietly, each movement deliberate, aware that the wrong sound could alert unseen eyes. Trask studied the chamber. Hidden passages. Faint scratches along the stone walls, and the faint smell of iron suggested it had been used for more than hiding a fugitive. Something ritualistic, perhaps, or something darker still. As they emerged from the underground chamber, Trask noticed Harlan staring at him with fear and suspicion. "Sir, do you trust him?" Trask didn't answer immediately. Trust was a luxury they couldn't afford. He knew one wrong step could undo everything, could cost them not just Raines but their lives. Valor patted ahead, nose low, scanning for threats. Suddenly, a shadow moved at the edge of the clearing. A gun clicked, sharp, threatening. Lieutenant Greer stepped into view, pistol raised, eyes cold, calculating. Going somewhere? Trask froze. Betrayal was no longer subtle. It was a gun in their faces. Raines's calm demeanor didn't falter. "Caleb, I think you understand now why I smiled. The game isn't over, but you might learn something." Trask's mind raced, calculating options. Harlan trembled beside him. Valor growled, a low, ominous warning. Greer's finger hovered over the trigger, the mist swirling between them like a living barrier of tension. In that moment, Trask realized the prison wasn't the only danger. They were deep in the forest now, isolated, at the mercy of people who played by rules only they understood. Every alliance, every assumed loyalty, could be weaponized against them. Raines moved subtly, a hand brushing against a concealed pocket. Valor barked sharply, lunging forward just as Raines produced a small device. It wasn't a weapon. It was a key, a signal, a piece of the puzzle Trask hadn't yet solved. Greer's eyes flicked toward it, momentary hesitation. Enough. Trask acted. Harlan followed. The forest erupted into chaos as Valor's barking and growls shattered the tension. Greer fired once, missing, the echo ricocheting through the trees. Raines dashed toward another hidden path Trask hadn't noticed, disappearing into the undergrowth. The night swallowed him. Trask's lungs burned, adrenaline coursing, fear and fury mingling. Harlan was close behind, shaken but determined. Valor led, always leading, following a trail only he could sense. By the time the fog thickened again, Trask realized something chilling. Freeing Rains hadn't ended the night. It had begun something far more dangerous. The hidden chamber, the betrayal, the manipulations, they were pieces of a larger web, and they were trapped in it now, along with a fugitive whose motives were as obscure as the shadows around them. As dawn crept over the horizon, painting the forest in muted golds and grays, Trask knew one thing with certainty. The next move would be crucial. The hidden chamber wasn't just a hiding place. It was a starting point for something bigger, something they could barely comprehend, and someone, somewhere, was already waiting for them to make a mistake. The forest hung heavy with silence, broken only by the crunch of leaves under Valor's paws and the distant call of a raven. Trask's breath came in shallow bursts, each one carrying the weight of exhaustion and dread. Michael Rains had vanished into the shadows hours ago, leaving them only with fragmented clues and a growing sense of unease. Trask had a gnawing suspicion that the hidden chamber wasn't merely a refuge. It was a key to something that could shatter lives, trust, and the fragile order of Pine Hollow itself. Harlan stumbled behind him, face pale, muttering under his breath, "Sir, I don't know how much more of this I can take." Trask didn't answer. He was too busy studying the subtle signs Valor followed. Flattened grass, faint scratches on tree bark, a sudden bend in the fog that suggested another passage. The dog's instincts were flawless. But instinct alone couldn't reveal human deceit, and Trask knew betrayal waited at every turn. Hours passed. The forest twisted around them, dark and oppressive, and then Valor halted abruptly at a moss-covered stone wall, nearly hidden in a natural dip of the land. Trask crouched, flashlight sweeping the surface. Symbols scratched into the stone glimmered faintly in the weak light, a language of secrecy he didn't recognize. The wall was hollow. Behind it lay the final chamber. Trask signaled Harlan to stay back, approaching the wall cautiously. With a grunt, he pushed aside the stones, revealing a narrow tunnel. Damp air escaped, carrying with it the faint, metallic scent of blood and something older, ancient decay. They slipped inside, the walls closing around them. The tunnel twisted, descending into a cavernous chamber. And there he was. Rain stood in the center, calm, collected, hands resting lightly on a stone pedestal. Around him were remnants of the chamber's secrets, maps of the prison and surrounding forests, stacks of photographs, and in the corner, a small chest containing more papers and strange artifacts. But it wasn't the evidence that made Trask's blood run cold. It was the other figure, Lieutenant Greer, tied to a chair, gagged, bruised, and silent. Rains turned slowly, a shadow of a smile on his face. "Welcome," he said, voice soft but commanding. "You finally arrived." Trask's mind raced. Greer had orchestrated the escape, or so he believed, but now it was clear he'd been double-crossed. Rains's plan had layers Trask hadn't anticipated. Why all this? Trask demanded. Why involve us? Rains gestured to the chamber. Because trust is the currency of control, and Pine Hollow is rich with betrayal. Greer thought he controlled the pieces, but the truth belongs to those who see the board for what it is. Harlan stepped forward, trembling. "You've been manipulating everyone. Why?" Rains's gaze softened, almost melancholic. "I didn't start this. But sometimes the system forces you to play the only game you can survive. I chose to expose it before it consumed me, but it required certain sacrifices." Trask's jaw tightened. "Sacrifices? You put Greer in danger." "Greer put himself in danger when he thought he could manipulate me." Rains replied evenly. "Morality isn't black and white here, Sergeant. It never was." The tension snapped like a frayed wire. Valor barked and lunged toward Rains, who didn't flinch. But something in the dog's stance signaled a hidden truth. Trask realized it. Rains wasn't a mere escapee or criminal mastermind. He was a mirror reflecting the corruption, the fear, and the moral compromises of everyone in Pine Hollow. Suddenly, the chamber trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Trask grabbed Harlan, pulling him back. A secret mechanism Rains had activated shifted, revealing a hidden compartment beneath the pedestal. Inside was a collection of documents, names, plans, secrets of every corrupt guard and inmate who had ever twisted the prison's order for personal gain. The chamber itself was a record of treachery, a tomb of secrets. Raines handed the papers to Trask. "It's yours now. Decide what to do with it. Expose it or let it die here. But choose carefully, because even a single wrong move could cost everything." Trask's mind reeled. The weight of the responsibility was crushing, and yet, amidst the fear, a quiet resolve began to form. He looked at Greer, beaten, humiliated yet alive, and then at Raines, standing calm amidst chaos. The lines between right and wrong blurred, but one truth remained. The system was broken, and now it was up to him to determine what justice meant. Outside, the forest stirred as the first light of dawn pierced the fog. Valor nudged Trask's hand, grounding him in the moment. The fugitive, the betrayer, and the morally gray all existed in a single space now, their fates intertwined. Trask knew choices would have consequences, but for the first time in hours, he felt a quiet clarity. They emerged from the chamber together, Raines free but cooperative, Greer subdued, and the documents in Trask's hands like a key to a new order. The sun broke over Pine Hollow, casting long shadows that seemed to whisper of endings and beginnings. There was no triumph, no grand celebration, just a solemn, heavy satisfaction that some truths had been unearthed and some justice restored. Harlan exhaled deeply. We survived. Trask gave a small nod. Survived, yes, but nothing ends here. Not really. Raines glanced at him, a flicker of respect in his eyes. Perhaps not, but tonight the lies stop, at least for now. Valor barked softly, a sentinel of loyalty and intuition. Trask patted the dog's head, feeling the bond that had guided them through darkness and betrayal. As they walked back toward the prison, the forest behind them seemed quieter, the fog lifting just enough to reveal the twisted paths they had navigated. And though Pine Hollow would continue to hide its secrets, a measure of truth now existed. A prisoner had vanished. A K9 had led them, and a hidden chamber had revealed more than anyone could have imagined. The night had tested their limits, their loyalties, and their morality. And in the end, it left them with something quiet, profound, and irrevocable. The knowledge that even in the darkest corners, truth could still be uncovered. And that courage often came from the most unexpected sources.